It's not an Arsenal transfer window without getting linked to another left back. I don't know why we seem to do this every single transfer window, especially when we have Miles Lewis-Skelly and Calafiori that can both play in those positions. But since Kiwior is on his way to Porto for around 25 million or whatever it is, we are linked with another left back. And to be honest with you, we've spent a lot of money as it is. I know Arsenal need to focus on outgoings, but the more quality we can bring into the team, the more depth that we can bring in, I'm all for it, because I want to compete in all fronts and I want to win trophies this season. This is the season to do it. But anyhow, we are in the run to get Hincapié. Another thing, Tottenham were linked with this guy, and for some reason we just like to get ahead of them in the transfer window. I mean, we got Eze and now we're linked with Hincapié, so yeah, I'm pretty happy about this. I really want to do something where Arsenal can get a player off of Chelsea or something like that, in terms of Chelsea wanting a player and then we just get it over them, or from Manchester City or something like that. I mean, it's fun doing it with Tottenham, but I really want to see it with like the other big teams as well. Well, I know Tottenham isn't a big team, but anyhow. So with Hincapié, he's 23 years old. He's an Ecuadorian player. He's around 6 foot plus, and he's a guy that can play centre back and left back. Now, I think if he was to come at Arsenal, he would primarily play as a left back. While he can play as centre back, he's versatile, and we all know how much Arteta loves his versatile players. Now, as a guy that has played for the Bayer Leverkusen, he's been part of that unbeaten team back in 23-24 where Bayer Leverkusen went undefeated the whole season. They won the domestic treble, but unfortunately lost out in the final in the Europa League, where they lost to Atlanta due to Ademola Lookman. We all know the story, the goals he scored. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. And he has played for Ecuador in the 2020 World Cup and in the 24 Copa America. He is a modern ball-playing defender. He's good at progressing play, making incisive passes, getting it over the line to the forward line, carrying it forward and connecting with the midfield. However, a benefit and a drawback to his style of play and to him as a player is that he can be aggressive and combative. He engages in duels and interceptions. He's a guy that's there for the fight. However, he's at risk for a lot of fouls. He's been booked 8 times last season and he received a red card in the Champions League match. So that is something that Arsenal really needs to look out for, because Arsenal are skeptical, especially in the Premier League, to receiving cards, lots of cards. I mean, there have been many times where Arsenal have received red cards for whatever the reason, for very soft play. So if we have this guy who's going to come in and play for Arsenal and who is aggressive, I'm not sure how that is going to work out, and we may be at risk of seeing him potentially getting red cards. So that is something that we need to look at. He is a versatile player. We all know how much Arsenal love their versatile players. He plays either in a back 3 or he can play in a back 4. He's as a left centre back or as a left back. He's not the tallest, but he wins about 61% of his aerial duels, which is better than some of the Arsenal players, and he's fast in recovery runs. So we all know how great it is where 1v1 situations with the other team and we need a player to make that run back. Hincapié can definitely do that. And in terms of some of his weaknesses, he's not as strong as other defenders, and maybe that might be an issue in the Premier League, because you need to be strong, you need to fight against the other teams in terms of winning those physical battles, and he is skeptical of giving away fouls, and that's something that if Arsenal do decide to bring him in, that's something to expect from Piero Hincapié, especially by getting the yellow cards and potentially maybe expecting red cards from him through the season. So that's something for Arsenal to keep an eye on. Now, don't get me wrong, Arsenal are in talks to get him. Personal team terms are agreed. However, they're looking with a loan with an obligation to buy, similar to the David Raya deal, and maybe they might activate his release clause, which is looking around 52 million pounds or 60 million euros. Don't get me wrong, this is a lot of money, and he is 23 years old. He is coming into the prime of his career. However, would you argue that Arsenal need to buy a left back, especially when we have Miles Lewis-Skelly and Calafiori that can both play in those positions, and hell, maybe even Timber for some time? You never really know, but it's kind of like the situation, or it could be like the situation where Arsenal let go of Ramsdale and went for Raya. So that is something that could be taken into consideration, and considering with the players that Arsenal have got this season, especially in the forward line, whether it's Madueke or Eze or Gyökeres, maybe Arsenal just thought to themselves they need to bolster their depth in defence a little bit, and Arsenal need to offload players. As fun as it is talking about Hincapié, Zinchenko, Vieira, Nelson, Lokonga, a lot of these players need to move on, and especially with Kiwior being linked with Porto, he's linked with a potential move to go for around 25 million pounds, which in my opinion is low, especially seeing Kirill last season, and I thought he was pretty immense for the running that he was able to do to cover for Gabriel Bagales. I mean, against Real Madrid, home and away, the partnership that he was able to make with Saliba. I think for 25 million, I think we're selling ourselves short, and I think Arsenal wanted 30 million from Porto, but Porto are only willing to pay around 21 million. So I don't know what's going on there. I know that Kirill may want to go to Porto, but Arsenal should try and get as much money as possible. And in my opinion, I think he's, for Kirill and the way he played last season, he can go for 30 to 35 million, especially if we see other players going for much more money. Kirill is a player that does deserve to be sold for that amount of money. However, it's not my business. I can't really do anything about that. But with Hincapié, just to go back on him, he would be great in a back three or back four as a left-sided option, and he's versatile playing along that left side, similar to Calafiori in that way. He's strong on the ball, he's got good composure, he adds progression and passing, which is similar to Arsenal's style, and he's an athletic player, which is something that Arsenal need in terms of their fullback. And he would compete with the likes of Calafiori, Saliba, Timber, Ben White and Mosquera, and he adds depth to the left side, which is something that would be really good. And if we do decide to sign him, Arsenal spending is going to go to around £300 million just on players spent, and at this moment in time we've only sold players worth in total up to around 8 million, which is crazy. Not something that I would expect Arsenal to do, especially with the amount of players that Arsenal spent this transfer window. It's quite crazy, to be honest with you. But yeah, he's got 46 caps for Ecuador. He's a player that is something that maybe Arteta wants, and with just to get something over Tottenham Hotspur is something that makes me quite happy, to be honest with you. Now, in terms of whether or not he's the type of guy that will be a starter or on the rotation, because a lot of Bayer Leverkusen fans say that he's more of a player that will want to start every game, which is good. Whether Arsenal will be able to do that or not, that's another question, and whether Hincapié will be willing to fight for his place, that's also another question that will need to be had for him. I think with the statistics, it shows that Hincapié is an upgrade to Kirill, and in terms of ball crushing and proactive defending, Kirill, however, is better than him in terms of winning headers. However, Hincapié's involvement in the build-up and his anticipation is better, much better than Kirill. However, Saliba is still the king at Arsenal. He's still the main guy in terms of defenders. However, with Hincapié coming into the side, it looks like Arsenal can really find an upgrade in terms of their squad depth in defense. But yeah, that is my assessment of Hincapié. He's a guy that I've looked at for quite a while, for years essentially, before he went to Bayer Leverkusen, especially someone that can play in that left-sided defense, whether it's left back or centre back. And as a depth option, I think he'll be very good. I think that he will cause problems for Mikel Arteta in terms of selections, which is also a very good thing. With Calafiori being injury prone, it might be a good idea to bring him in. Yes, I know people want to bring in Miles Skelly and play him in left back, and don't get me wrong, I want that as much as the next guy. However, maybe there could be the argument that if Hincapié comes to Arsenal, Miles Skelly can go and play in midfield, which is also something that a lot of people want to see. And there are question marks from MLS on whether or not he'll be found out this season, because that's the narrative that's been going around him as well, especially with the fact that he hasn't really played as much this season. I know it's only been 2 games, but it's something that to keep an eye out for. But yeah, Hincapié to Arsenal, 50 to 60 million pounds. It's not my money, but if Arsenal are going for him, then they're going for him. And especially with other players like Hijack around the corner in attack, I don't know, maybe I'm just being real greedy. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Hincapié. I think he'd be a good depth option, but what are your thoughts? Please let me know. Please put it down in the comments below, and that's the end for me. Please like and subscribe, and hope to see you soon in the next video. Bye bye.